Good morning. This is Jack from Chartered Markets, and this is the Bigger Picture webinar for the morning of Sunday, the 11th of May. My disclaimer, I do this for educational purposes only. I'm here to share my technical analysis with you. I hope you can take some of what I'm doing and learn from it, transfer it to your own charts. I'm not here to issue trading signals. Right. Okay, let's have a look at ES. ES, I've been noting for the last couple of days we've got possible level tops here on ES and NQ and RTY and YM, and they're all still there. We've not broken significantly above. There is an argument, or at least it would improve the bear flag if we went up a little on SPX. I'm wondering if we might do that and test the 200 DMA as well. We may or may not do that. Really, we're at a stage where we can see a fail any time. Do we have any negative divergence on the hourly chart? No, not really. I do have one sell signal fixed, but actually it's on ESTX, and it's only a weak one. In terms of DAX, really, for a good confirmation of a turn, I'd be looking for 4 or 5 of decent quality, and generally, well, certainly the main ones, not weak ones. But nonetheless, we may well turn here, and we've certainly got all the daily negative divergence that we could possibly want. On DAX, I've been looking for a retest this high, and you can see we haven't quite made it, but I would say on the main index we have made it. That new all-time high was made on Friday, and that is the dog, and well, this is the tail. So that's the main target I was looking for, and that's already been made. All right, let's have a look at the bigger picture charts. Okay, looking at SPX, very nice. Well, ES first, very nice RSI 5 sell signal brewing, exactly the same on SPX. New weekly pivot is at 56.53, and you can see we've got a nice looking little double top here. That may deliver. We don't have to go any higher. One reason I'm thinking we might go higher is because we never quite made this trend line I posted. But to be honest, we may not make it. The fact is, this would make a perfectly acceptable rising wedge. It's not quite as nice as some of the ones that we have looked at, and like the ones at the last top of the last rally. Because if it doesn't make it, the resistance trend line would just be this. And that would be fine. Is it quite as nice? No, because it's not quite as well anchored, but nonetheless, it's perfectly acceptable. We do not need to go any higher, and we may not. So why am I thinking we might go higher? Well, there is the 200 MA. We haven't quite reached it yet. I've got that at 57.48, and we haven't quite made it. It's up here. Have we got close enough potentially? Yes. So I would be far from astounded if we turn back down directly from here. And I am wondering if the trigger might be the Chinese talks. Now we did get a post on Truth Social from Trump yesterday saying total reset, lots of stuff agreed. I am skeptical. I'm very skeptical because Trump can't just give up, or at least I find it very hard to see him admitting that he was wrong about something. And I don't think, even if he is ready to do that later in the year, he doesn't look ready to do that now. And really, cutting down Chinese tariffs really seriously, down to like 10% or something, would be an admission of failure, even if he didn't actually admit that was the case. If he's talking about, Howard Lutnick, I think, was talking about it, just the tariffs going down to 40% or something. They might do that, but it's hard to see that the Chinese would be particularly enthusiastic. Maybe we shall see, but I'm not expecting to see an awful lot, and the market reaction from it, which we're seeing on crypto and some of these unofficial over weekend futures, has been muted, and that's because Trump's not a terribly reliable source, and he didn't post any numbers. So if we get reliable sources and some numbers tomorrow, that could extend this rally a bit. I'm skeptical about it doing a great deal of damage to the upside from here. I think we're looking for a retracement soon, but this is a news market this year. We shall see. All right, so that's where we are. No divergence on the hourly chart here. Really, we've been moving pretty slowly the last few days. This isn't the kind of tick which produces a lot of retracements. Sorry, a lot of negative divergence. Qs, we're testing the 200 DMA. We are not getting through it so far. We've got a possible RSI 5 sell signal brewing there. We've got another one on Dia. Dia hasn't reached the 200 DMA. I've got that at 420. But we're basically testing the 50 DMA at the moment. I'm skeptical about it going up high enough to reach the 200. Looking at the Qs, do we have a nice looking double top here? Yes. Did we reach the trend line I posted on the 17th of April? Yes, and we've overthrown it slightly. This is a pretty nice looking topping setup, actually. On Dia, this was the trend line I posted. We reached that too. Nice looking double top again. We'll see. Looking at IWM. Moving over, hang on. Right, looking at IWM on the daily chart, we closed the week at 281. I've got it. I've got the 50 DMA slightly below at 197. I've got the 200 DMA a long way higher at 215. I'm skeptical about it getting that high. I was wondering if we might reach this declining resistance up in the 211 area, but at the moment, well, it looks some distance away. There's no particular need for it to reach it. I am wondering about double top here. I've got a trend line above. I've currently got that in about the 207 area. We may not reach it. We will see. It's would it make this setup a lot weaker? No. I mean, quite a few rising wedges do this. They don't reach the ideal trend lines, so we don't need to reach this one. It's an option, and we may still reach it, but we don't need to. All right, DAX. DAX, we have gone back and we've retested the high. You can see that on the daily chart here. We've got a possible weak RSI 5 sell signal brewing, but it's not as nice as the sell signals that we've got on the US index charts, which are very nice. You can see that's a new all-time high there. This is one of the things I was thinking we'd got sufficiently close that we were probably going to see that high before we saw a turn, and we got it. All right, Nikkei, nice rally here. We're getting pretty close to the test of the 200 MA, which is the main resistance I'm looking at here, as it is on SPX. We don't actually have to reach it for a full test, but it is an option that could consider, and for what it's worth, that is in the 37.938 area, which is not far away. We shall see. All right, let's have a look at DX. Okay, on DX, we've got an IHS which is broken up here with a target in the 101.75 area. I'm still quite liking that. No current divergence on the hourly chart. I've drawn in a potential alternate, which is the decent looking bear flag option here, and I've got resistance for that up currently at about the 101.25 area. Looking at ZB, we're retesting this low here. This could be the second low of a short-term double bottom, and we've got close enough to the head and shoulders target that this could be good enough for government, work. I've got a weak 60-minute buy signal fixed, but let's have a look at the bigger picture charts. Okay, let's do US dollar first. Now, US dollar, we've broken over this declining resistance, which is encouraging to go a bit higher. You can see I've marked in the IHS here as well. On the weekly chart, we are not doing any damage, but you can see that this possible bull flag support that I drew in after we made this high here has been hit, and that is a serious thing to consider here. My lean in terms of Trump's policies is that for the dollar to go down, as he says himself, that he would like it to go down. But until it is broken with any confidence, this is a bull flag setup. We had an ideal bull flag support trend line. We went and we hit it. It's been hit it perfectly. It's been holding until demonstrated otherwise. This is a bull flag. So we will see how it progresses from here. But if this bull flag plays out in the way that bull flags normally play out, this would break up from here and it would head towards this target of the 114.78 area. I'm a little skeptical about that happening, but the pattern setup is there, and I will generally pay a lot of attention to the pattern setup. It's so until demonstrated otherwise, this is a bullish looking setup. Okay, looking at TNX. TNX, I've drawn in the possible IHS that could be forming here. Going to be watching that with interest on the weekly chart. Looking for, we had a flag that broke up. I think we might have been forming a larger triangle. We could have another flag and go down a bit more here. But at the moment, this is looking as though TNX is probably going to head higher. I've got this very nice looking rising channel here as well, and that obviously, as long as that holds, that is firm support, which is now down here in the 38.5 area, and it's suggesting a target which is up here and a lot higher. Now, I'd only really initially be looking for a retest of 49.97, but from there we enter an inflection point where, of course, TNX could break up hard. If we see a bonds crisis this year, and I'm thinking we might, then that could go a lot higher. Looking at the daily chart, no current divergence, leaning towards the upside here. We're broken over the 50 DMA. We broke back over the 200, then the 50 daily middle band. Looking good to the upside. I've got the 100 on there, but it's not one of the major moving averages. So 50 and 200 are the two major ones. In terms of the hourly chart, we've got an IHS here, which is trying to break up towards a retest of this high at 45.92. I'm not seeing anything currently suggesting that won't make target. That doesn't mean it will, but we could fail down into a retest of this low at 41.24. But at the moment, I'm leaning towards the upside, and I think that's got a pretty good chance of playing out. Okay, let's have a look at CL. CL, I posted the other day, and I've been putting on my notes on the futures chart that if this IHS breaks up and makes the target from the 65.5 area, that may be a C wave in an ABC bear flag. So what we're looking at is here ABC, possible trendline resistance currently at about the 66.5 area, and then we would come back and retest the lows and very possibly go lower. That's still looking pretty good too. We need to get, if we're going to make that target in 65.5 area, we'll need to get over the monthly pivot at 61.55. Can we do that? We shall see. It's testing it at the moment. Looking at NG, NG's gone a little higher here. This could still potentially be a double top, but probably isn't. I'm leaning towards this being a very possible bear flag forming. And if so, we could see a move up into the 4 area next, because that's where the the rising resistance is. Let's have a look at those on the bigger picture charts and on CL. Right, on oil, we've got this nice looking channel here, and I'm wondering if this might hold. Certainly, this is the main resistance I'll be looking at if we go below this current low here at 56.06. We will see. We're testing the daily middle band at the moment. Obviously, we've got resistance there. We shall see whether it gets over it. On the bigger picture, I've got declining resistance currently in about the 73 area. So obviously that's not being threatened, but I am wondering, I've got a channel here, and I'm wondering about a possible move down into the 30s here. Early days, and that's highly speculative at the moment, but the chart is just suggesting that possibility. And if we go into deep recessions in the US and elsewhere, which we could, then obviously that tends to be very bad for oil demand. All right, looking at natural gas. Natural gas is breaking a bit higher here. We're getting over the 50 DMA. I was looking for resistance here, potentially in the 3.72 to 3.93 area. We're up in that area now. We will see whether or not it gets through that. We'll see. Bigger picture, of course, we've got this this double top, which is broken up towards 5.75. I am wondering if we're seeing a head and shoulders forming here. It's not a great head and shoulders, but I'm wondering if we're basically setting up to go back and retest these lows, which is where we should go if this double bottom is failing, which it might well be. We'll see. Again, energies, we're very likely in recession here in the US at the moment. And 40% of electricity in the US is produced with natural gas. Being in recession isn't good for energy demand, so we'll see. All right, great. Let's have a look at gold. Now, gold, we've got we've got a flag here which is already broken up with a retest target of the retest the high. I have been wondering whether this could be A, B, C, and whether we could go lower. Not much sign of the monthly pivot breaking at 32, 66.50 at the moment, but we shall see. It's been behaving very technically, which I like. Lovely little head and shoulders here, went down, made target. Nothing strongly suggesting a direction here right now. Silver, though, I've got this lovely falling channel here. Now, this is interesting. I was writing here that if we go down to the channel support, then that could get us down into the 31.545 area, because that's where that support is now. Again, this is suggesting I think this is a bullish consolidation. And I'm leaning towards this being basically, heading back up and retest these highs in the not too distant future, but I am wondering if we might see lower first. Looking at palladium, not a lot to see. 60-minute sell signal as fixed hasn't quite made the possible near miss target. Could be forming a double top, but it's not a decent pattern so far. We do have a nice looking potential double top on platinum, which I'm watching with interest, and we've also got it rejected quite strongly after it reached it, but this is actually a completed head and shoulder pattern. It hasn't broken down yet, but and really I'd be expecting to see a breakdown on Monday if this is going to break down. But it's interesting is there, and if it breaks down, then I'd be looking for a retest of this low here in about the 4.06 area. Now, just like energies, copper is highly sensitive to economic activity, and being that we are in recession here in the US, very, very likely, that's not likely to be good for copper prices either. Okay, let's have a look at those on the bigger picture. Right, now on the gold daily chart, we're obviously we've seen a lot of tests of the daily middle band, obviously a key support level, and it's very much been acting as a key support level. If we are going to see a bull flag forming that involves a lower low, obviously it's going to need to get through the daily middle band. So the bands are compressing. It may be that this will just resolve to the upside, but I'm keeping open the opportunity to go a bit lower, which would probably be a buy opportunity. On the bigger picture, we've got on the monthly chart, we've got possible RSI 5 sell signal brewing, and we've got on the weekly chart, we've got possible RSI 5 sell signal brewing. I would say that we did have negative divergence on the RSI 14s on both, and this move was strong enough that we lost both of those divergences. We could lose the divergences on the weekly chart as well. We will see. All right, looking at silver. Silver, this is a nice looking bull flag, and we will see how it develops. This is a bigger bull flag than the one I showed you on the hourly chart. This one goes back into about September, but sooner or later, I'm expecting this to resolve into a retest of this high here at 34.86, and from there, I'm heading up towards this trend line here in the 38.5 area. I think there's a pretty good chance of us seeing that. Looking at palladium, on the weekly chart, I'm leaning towards seeing a retest of 808 next. It'd be nice to get that out of the way. That would set up a very nice looking double bottom. And of course, this double bottom here, it could still make target, but it's kind of looking as though it's failed. If it has failed, then, well, we should see a retest of 808. Looking at the daily chart, no current divergence. Still wondering about that retest of 808, obviously. Looking at platinum, we've been in a 3-year, basically, triangle consolidation. It doesn't appear to be a particularly nice classical triangle, but this is basically a consolidation. Which way should it break? Not certain, but generally speaking, these triangles are continuation patterns, and the target it would be down. So I'm also wondering about a retest this low here at 816.50. These are both industrial metals and more industrial than precious metals. So if we are seeing an economic contraction here, which we are, then that's going to have a lean to the downside on both of those. I am thinking later in the year, if we see a loss of confidence in US Treasuries, which I'm thinking we might well, and I think we're starting to see that now already, then I am thinking that some of these more minor precious metals, crypto, etc., might actually step up and become and be part of what replaces the US, the huge US Treasuries market. We will see how that goes. So I am thinking this might start behaving as a precious metal rather than an industrial metal later in the year, but I don't think there's no particular indication that is happening at the moment. No divergence worth the mention, but obviously, this has been a long consolidation. At some stage, this is going to break out very strongly, one way or the other. All right, looking at copper. Copper, we've got fail at the 50 DMA at the moment. I'm quite liking the downside here. I was saying when we got up and made this high here at 5.35 that I was expecting this to be followed by a fairly strong rejection. It was, and we got a nice looking double top here If we see a sustained break below 3.75, I've marked it in, we'd have a target in the 2.2 to 2.3 area. Given that copper is so sensitive to economic activity, I think there's a decent shot of that happening. GDX, not a lot to see at the moment. Still wondering about a test of this, possible test of this rising support trend line in the 43 area and change. GDXJ, again, very similar. And except in this case, the trend line is currently at about the 52.5 area. All right, let's have a look at, I forgot to look at currencies, so let's have a quick look at those. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, UUSD. UUSD, I'm leaning towards this being a bullish consolidation before it goes higher. How much higher could it go? A lot. The next big target I would have here is the possible IHS neckline at 1.2555, and that would be my preferred big target. But by the time it reaches that, we will already have seen, we would already have needed to see US dollar break its current supports. What is also a possibility here, which I'm considering, is that we're forming a bear flag here, and this would be a match with the bull flag on DX, and that we come back and retest this low here before going higher. I'm not seeing much of a fundamentals case for it, but I do see the patterns for it. We will see. Looking at GBP, again, falling wedge, broken up. There's plenty of upside potentially here, but again, we might see a retest of the lows. Looking at the daily charts, we've got a weak RSI 14 sell signal fixed, and the the full RSI 5 sell signal has made it possible near miss target. I've got a nice looking megaphone. I'm wondering about a test of this megaphone support currently in about the 1.293 area. No divergence on the daily chart. Looking at hang on. Yeah, and no signals, no divergence. All right, looking at USD CAD. Where's this looking? Well, this is actually a really nice looking potential double top. Now, USD JPY and USD CAD obviously are positively, not negatively correlated with the US dollar. So if the US dollar was heading down hard, this would be heading down hard. So I'm wondering whether we're going to see a fairly serious breakdown on the US dollar over the next couple of years, and this could be a harbinger of that event. So I'm watching that fairly carefully. In terms of the daily chart, we've got a weak RSI 14 buy signal fixed, and we had an RSI 5 buy signal fixed, which is made target. I'm wondering if we're going to see more upside before we see more downside. All right, looking at Australian dollar. Bigger picture, I've got this nice looking pattern and it hasn't actually broken up yet. Short term, could this be a double bottom? Yes. Bigger picture, would this be improved by a retest of this low here at 55.10? Yes. We will see. No current divergence. We did have a daily RSI 5 sell signal here, but it failed. This is messy, and there's no clear pattern here. Looking at NZ, again, I'm wondering about upside, but it's much, much more ambiguous than some of the others. This is a very imperfect looking triangle consolidation at the moment, but it is a consolidation most likely. I'm leaning towards seeing a retest of this low here at 54.70, but we may not get it. In terms of the daily charts, the weak RSI 5 sell signal here didn't quite fail and has now made the possible near miss target. So we shall see. All right, let's have a look at commodities. Okay, KC. Now KC, we had a head and shoulders breakdown here. It was nice and it failed with a move back over the right shoulder. Generally speaking, this would deliver a retest of this high here in the 419 area. Now, it's not much sign of that happening at the moment, but nonetheless, unless we see a sustained break below the monthly pivot at 38118, that's what I'll be looking for. On sugar, we're seeing a nice little rally here. Bigger picture, I'll be showing you a chart which is suggesting that this is a very dangerous one to be holding. On CC, double bottom has broken up here. Still waiting to see if that's going to follow through to the upside, but it hasn't convincingly failed. So we'll see. Cotton. Cotton could be forming a triangle here, in which case it would be a bullish triangle, or we could just be doing a retracement for heading up. Next obvious big target for me is a retest of this high here in the 69.75 area. Looking at lumber, lumber has been trickling along. I'm leaning a bit towards the downside here. Not much to contradict that at the moment. On wheat, wheat, I was looking for a target in the 495 area. That looks rather closer on the big picture chart. We've got a possible weak 60-minute buy signal brewing here. We'll see, but I'm quite liking that downside target. In terms of corn may go lower, but has already retested this low, which is what I was looking for. The week 6-minute bicycle has reached the possible near miss target. Actually, it hasn't. Sorry, I've mismarked that. It hasn't reached it yet. Leaning towards seeing a bit more upside, we shall see. Looking at soy, possible head and shoulders forming here. Not convinced about it either way. Might just be a bullish consolidation. Looking at the live cattle chart, we've gone a little higher here. Not much reason to think this is about to turn back down. We'll see. Live cattle's broke down a while back from a head and shoulders, looking for a target down here in about the 95.5 to 96.5, 96 area, and at the moment it's still thinking about it. I'm quite liking that target, but could go either way at this stage. Right, so we shall see. Let's have a look at the bigger picture charts. Okay, coffee, looking very stretched by current standards. Also did quite a nice back test of this broken rising support. Could be forming a big bull flag, but I'm leaning towards this being a topping pattern of some kind forming. I'd quite like to see a retest of this 4.41, but at the moment it's been reluctant to do that. On the daily chart, no current divergence. We shall see. Testing the daily middle band as support at the moment and holding it. Looking at sugar, we've got this massive head and shoulders here, which is trying to break down, and that's got a target a long, long way below. And that's why sugar is such a tricky hold at the moment in terms of being a long. On the daily chart, RSI 5 bicycle reached the possible near miss target. No current divergence, really. We have just interestingly broken over the daily middle band and the declining resistance here. So if that holds into Monday, then that could deliver a larger move to the upside. In terms of sugar, I'm not saying it isn't going to go up. I'm just saying that if it goes down, it could be going down a very long way. All right, looking at cocoa, by historical standards, you can see the cocoa is very high. Could this be a double top? No, I think it's too big. Really to be one. But I am thinking this could go considerably lower from here. I'd love to see a high retest first, but we will see. All right, looking at wheat. We've got a falling wedge. We've broken up. I'm looking for a retest this low. I've got that at 495. I'm wondering why this is showing 504. I think wheat might just have actually rolled. I missed it. So I'll be checking on that later. But you can see it's marking the low here at 504.25. This low here is at 495.50. It is not far away. And that could set up a really nice looking nested double bottom. So I'd quite like to see that. Looking at wheat on the daily, no current divergence, leaning a bit lower. We shall see. And actually here we are seeing it. I wonder why it didn't do that on the... Okay, maybe it just hasn't caught up or something. But you can see here it is showing that low here. So I'm leaning towards seeing that it is pretty close. And this long consolidation looks as though it's breaking down, and the target is a retest of this low here at 495.50. Looking at corn, this could well be a bear flag, setting up a retest of this low here at 385. And if so, this may well be breaking down now. I am watching this with interest, but I'm thinking this may well head down and retest 385. We've broken that rising support, and that's the obvious target. In terms of the daily chart, no current positive divergence. You can see that rising support has failed. If this is a bear flag, and it could be, then that would be the obvious next target. Looking at soybeans, we've got what looks like a bear flag forming here too. Now, the mystery with soybeans is not why... Well, the mystery of soybeans is why it hasn't gone down yet, because actually an awful lot, I think over half of America's soybeans get sold to China, and obviously the tariff wars are not helping that out. I mean, maybe they'll get a boost after Monday, but really over the last 5 weeks, I've been wondering why this has actually generally been going up. In terms of the daily chart, no current divergence. When this flag breaks down, I'd be looking for a retest this low here at 936.06. Looking at cotton. We've got a weak RSI 14 weekly bicycle fixed, and we've almost made it to this declining resistance here. This is a decent looking falling wedge. Bigger picture, this is a bullish pattern. It's leaning bullish for at least a sizable retracement and a decent move to the upside, which could well involve a move to the 50% retracement, which I've got here at about the 108 area. Looking at the daily chart, no current divergence. not a great deal in terms of conclusions. Lumber on the weekly chart, I think this may be a bear flag forming here too, but I don't have any decent resistance trend lines for it. It may be because we haven't gone high enough. I'm not really seeing any obvious options either. Keeping an open mind on this, but in the short term, I would note that we've got a double top that's broken down here, and I've got a target in the 510 to 520 area. That is what I'm leaning towards seeing that made. So before we do any more upside, I'm leaning towards seeing more downside into that area. We shall see. All right, great. In that case, I think that's a wrap, guys. I will catch you guys again on Wednesday, and really, I'm interested in seeing what happens on the China talks today when we finally get an idea of what does happen, not just Trump's announcements or whatever. It'll be interesting to see what the Chinese have to say. Personally, my hopes aren't high, and that's because Trump is very, very keen. One, he's a true believer in tariffs, and two, he's very, very keen on reducing the trade deficit. Who is his trade deficit mainly with? His biggest trading partners, and they are Canada, Mexico, and the EU, and China and Japan. And at the moment, we're not in meaningful talks, as far as I'm aware, with Canada or Mexico or the EU or Japan, which walked out of the talks saying basically they'd come back when the US had some idea of what they wanted and when it didn't just feel like extortion. China, well, unless Trump is happy to give a lot away, it's hard to see any quick deal being done with China. I am skeptical, and I don't think Trump's the kind of guy to back down. It's we will see, but I think in terms of him wanting to reduce the deficit, that limits his options in terms of what he can do with China. So we'll see how it develops, but I am very, very skeptical. All right, brilliant. I will catch you guys again on Wednesday. Hope you had a great weekend. I'll see you next week.